Hello everyone. I'm Victoria from Leicestershire Libraries. I'm a librarian and I'm here to introduce today's online book club for February, which will be a special for LGBT plus History Month. And so I've got some special guests joining me today. I've got Fiona Walker, and Fiona is the chair of the Staff Network for Leicestershire County Council for the LGBT plus committee. Is that correct, Fiona?
Yeah.
Lovely. And I've also got Carol Neath as well, who's a librarian like me as well. Thank you for joining us today. We're going to be discussing two books today, which will be The Women of Primrose Square and Ruby Fruit Jungle. So just before we do that, just to let you know, what you can do is get these as ebooks, and you can get them on BorrowBox. So what you will need is your Leicestershire Library card and your PIN number, and then you need to access what we call BorrowBox, which is an app you can download onto your phone or your tablet, or you can get it on your desktop computer, and then you'll be able to get a hold of these books electronically, and that's all free as well with your Leicestershire Library card. So we hope that you'll take a look at these books afterwards. And I know The Women of Primrose Square is available without any queues, so you won't have to place a hold or anything like that. You'll be able to access that book straight away if you're hopefully really inspired to read it after we've talked about it today. Who would like to go first? Who would like to talk about their book first?
Wow.
I can go first. Oh,
I don't mind.
Okay.
We're so decisive today.
Fiona, I'd really like to hear about Ruby Fruit Jungle, because I know that it's a book that's it's not a modern book. It's something that's quite historical. So it's really appropriate, isn't it, for LGBT plus History Month? So would you mind showing us the book and telling us what it's about as well?
Yeah. So Ruby Fruit Jungle was published in 1973. It was Rita Mae Brown's debut novel, and it's been described as the breakthrough lesbian novel. I've been aware of it for a long time since being part of the LGBT community, but I've never got around to reading it. So I thought LGBT plus History Month was a good opportunity to make that happen. And within the first few pages, I realised this was exactly the sort of book that I would have lapped up as a teenager. It's a coming of age story, but with a lot of humour in it. But because it was always marketed as a lesbian novel and sort of not mainstream, I wasn't aware of its existence when I was a teenager or for quite a long time afterwards. So it starts off with our protagonist, Molly Bolt, who's age 7. She says this is the first sort of memory she can remember. She's living on a family farm with her parents and an extended family. And she gets into a lot of trouble. She gets into trouble with a sort of money-making scheme that she's thought up, and her mother, in her anger, tells her that she's adopted and she was a bastard of a neighbour that her parents agreed to take her on. And she spends a lot of time with her cousin Leroy working on the family farm. They get into a lot of trouble. But when she's older, she develops a relationship with a girl in her class at school, but then that's interrupted by her family, and Leroy's moving to Florida for work. And then they go on to high school in a new town, and she suddenly becomes aware of sort of class differences and differences in wealth. And she sees that there's rich kids and less affluent ones. So she kind of uses her natural intelligence and her humour to gain popularity and get where she wants to. And she manages to get financial support through the last part of school. But then she starts to really grow apart from her family, her cousin and her mum and her aunt, who all think she's become really arrogant. And then she gets a scholarship to the local university, but things don't go very smoothly. She refuses to be closeted about her sexual orientation, wants to have relationships. So she ends up running away. She's kind of alienated her family by this point. So she runs away to New York on her own with a few dollars in her pocket, to do film studies, which is what her dream is to do. And she thinks things will be better in a big city. But in New York, she really struggles to make ends meet. She manages to work her way quite slowly through film school, working full time and doing it in the evenings. And she's surrounded by hostility from all her male classmates and teachers. Nobody thinks she should be there because there's no room for girls in the film industry. And the book ends, she graduates top of her class. She's really, really good at what she does, but the book ends with her still struggling to find work in the film industry. But she's really defiant and hopeful that she can overcome all those barriers and kind of reach her dreams. And that's kind of where we leave her.
Okay, so it sounds like Molly is a really compelling character throughout. It sounds like her kind of tenacity and grit kind of carry the story forward in a lot of ways.
Yeah, definitely. It's about being her sense of herself, kind of overcoming all those other barriers.
It's really inspiring. I was going to say, how would you say the experiences of the main character in this kind of 60s and 70s setting compare to the challenges that are experienced by LGBT plus people today?
I think she's nobody in her world thinks that it's okay to be a woman, a girl who likes girls, or a lesbian, or she's really struggles with labels, so she doesn't like to sort of label what she is, but whatever is labeled, it's universally seen as unnatural and she's a freak, and even she thinks that. It's just doesn't care because she hasn't got anything else to compare it to, so she knows that there are people like her out there somewhere, but she doesn't really ever get to meet them. So her sense of her own self kind of pulls her through that. But I think, it's not quite like that today for LGBT people, at least. I think trans people in today's society see a lot of that language and a lot of that those attitudes still, really, that lesbians and gay men were seeing in the 70s. So I think, different parts of the community, there'd be a different answer to that, I guess.
Sure. Sure.
Do you think she would have just been passed off as just being a tomboy by her friends and family and teachers and things?
Yeah, I mean, I think she was always seen as a tomboy, and to begin with, that was what her mum gave her a hard time for. Because her mum gave her a hard time, but to begin with, it was for being a tomboy. You need to wear dresses. There was a girl in their town who always she had ringlets in her hair and always wore a dress, and her mum was constantly saying you need to be more like her, and she thought she was not someone to aspire to at all, and she didn't understand why her mum would want her to be like somebody that she thought was all that smart, and so yes, she was seen as but even the term tomboy, she refused to be put in a box.
So how did reading this book make you feel as you were going along? Did you have like a variety of emotions, or was there an overriding feeling that came to you?
Yeah, I think I loved her determination to be herself, her sense of self that kind of that overwhelmed everything else that happened to her, really. And I guess she says a lot of times, I'm me. And when she finds out about her birth, she says, I got myself born, that's what counts. I'm here. So whatever life throws at her, even from an early age, she just wants to get on with life. She doesn't care about all of the stuff that most people care about. And I love that. And the book is so full of humour. It's a real laugh out loud book. And I like a book that's got a bit of depth, but is also entertaining, because you read entertained, don't you, at the end of the day? Sorry, carry on.
Yeah, I was just going to say, do you think her upbringing, she had to fight for what she had because she was poor and things like that. Do you think that helped develop her character? She had everything she wanted, she had to work for. It wasn't handed to her on a plate.
Yeah, I don't know. I think she didn't let herself be limited where she'd come from. But she was obviously quite gifted, and sometimes she comes over as not having much empathy for other people who aren't able to get or don't want to leave the sort of lifestyle that she grew up in. So yeah, you kind of get the impression that she would be her wherever she was, whatever upbringing she had, wherever she was in the world. she would have kind of been the same person, because there's such a sense of her in it all. But yes, I think the determination to get out of that that sort of upbringing and be herself, and not be, she was told things like girls can't be doctors, girls can't, you know, just wear dresses and get married, and so maybe having that kind of forced on her made her rebel more against it.
Do you
good.
could you tell us a bit more about the way that dialect and language are used in this book? Because I think I get a sense of the kind of the plot, but how does the language bring that out?
I think it's one wonderful use of language the whole way through. But to begin with, it's very much there's the sort of the rural dialect of because she's growing up on a farm, picking bugs off potatoes with her cousin is their farm job when they're little kids. And so so there's a lot of dialogue with them talking to each other that's very kind of basic, but also quite colourful in its own way. And as she grows and gets an education and learns about the classics and things, that comes into the language, and her language becomes more rich and more intricate. So it's kind of like she grows, even though obviously she's telling the story, but she kind of her language grows as she grows, and I think that's really well. And also the way she uses, I think the kind of the theme of nature within it. So not so much at the beginning, but when she moves to New York, she was obviously really struggling with being in a massive, overwhelming city, and she uses lots of language like that it's you know, that it's kind of affecting her mood, that she feels overwhelmed by it all. And then towards the end of the book, she goes back to Philadelphia, where she was as a small child. And the language there is that sort of she leaves New York on a Greyhound bus that's farting thick black pollution in its wake. And then as they go out to the countryside, as they start off in Philadelphia, she's surrounded by billboards. So the whole highway has billboards sort of along the whole way. And she says there's a glimpse of countryside through the thickets of advertising. And I love that sort of like forest, but billboards. And then when she gets to Philadelphia, she goes to her old house, which there's nobody there, and she lies down, and it's kind of completely different from the rest. She lies down next to this pond, and a caterpillar crawls over her, and a frog jumps over her, because she's there for so long that she doesn't know, they don't know that she's moving. And it's just a very different pace from so much of the rest of the book that slows everything down. And she has this wonderful time with nature, and then she goes back to finish her college course kind of completely invigorated and sort of renewed. And so I thought that was an interesting sort of bit where it's just the language suddenly changes in the countryside.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you. And thanks for treating us to some quotes there as well. I feel I feel like I love that image of the billboards. It's just, you can see it. You can see yourself going down between all the billboards. Oh, I love it. I can't wait to read that one. Could you hold that one up for us again, Fiona? Just to
does that help?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. So that's Ruby Fruit Jungle. And who's that one by? Sorry, Fiona.
It's Rita Mae Brown.
Oh, no, lovely.
There you go, look.
Oh, brilliant, thank you. And that one's available on BorrowBox as well, so you will be able to download that one as well off of our ebooks app. So we're going to move on now to talk about the women of Primrose Square, and I know that I think both of you have read this one, haven't you, Fiona and Carol? But I think Carol's going to present this for us and give us a little summary. Thank you.
So, can we see that one?
I can.
This is by Claudia Carroll, and it's called The Women of Primrose Square. And it's set, so it's by Bonnier Books. Sorry, it's published by Bonnier Books. Must remember to do that. It's set in Northern Ireland, in Ireland, in Dublin. And it's based in a little square of Victorian houses. It's a very close-knit community. Everybody knows everybody. The children grow up together. They invite each other around for afternoon teas and go for a walk in the park together. So it's really quite a close community. Now, the novel is based and centered around three main characters, and each of the characters has their own story. So we've got the first one, which is one of the quite interesting ones, is called Francesca Woods. Now, Francesca starts off the novel as called Frank. So Francesca is a trans woman, and so we follow Frank through his transition to become Francesca. Now, as Frank, he has a wife, he has 2 children, and he has a 50th birthday party, which he doesn't know about. It's a surprise. And as he arrives, he's not dressed as people would expect him to be. So that triggers off his need to be his true self, to be what he's always known he is or should be, and that is a woman. So we follow his transition, his relationship with his wife, his 2 children, his daughter in particular absolutely adores her dad, but where does that leave the family? Because Francesca isn't going to be a dad, but she's still her dad. It's quite complicated. We go through his hormone treatments and the prejudice that he has to go with at work. They used to call him Mr. Cellophane because they thought he was insignificant and he was always sort of the invisible man. But as Francesca, he's a different person, or she's a different person, and you get every time he wants to be himself, Francesca comes to the front. So it's always as if Francesca's always been there, but Frank's been hiding her. It's difficult to explain, but I think the book really covers that quite well. So it's definitely worth looking and reading that one. The next character is Emily Dunn. Now she's completely different. She's definitely not shy and invisible. She's a recovering alcoholic. She's just come out of rehab and she has an AA supporter, so Alcoholics Anonymous supporter. And he tries to keep her on the straight and narrow, which he does successfully, I have to say. Now, because she's been an alcoholic, she's got a little bit of a checkered past, and it's rather colourful. She's fallen out with a lot of people, an ex-husband, her mother, her sister. She's done lots of things and nobody's ever going to speak to her again. And she obviously wants to build bridges and make amends with everybody and make friends. If you've ever watched Mrs. Brown's Boys, and the language that Mrs. Brown uses, the swearing and she's a little bit like that sort of character. She likes to nip outside or hang out of the window and have a cigarette and just do things that people wouldn't normally do. So she's quite a colourful character. And the third one is Violet Hardcastle. Now, she's my favourite character. I really like Violet, but she is not a nice lady. She's quite a vile lady, actually. She writes poisoned pen letters to the neighbours in the street. If she sits in her window and watches everybody go by, and if she thinks they're doing things that they shouldn't, like parking in front of her house, or the children are throwing stones at something or whatever, she writes to parents. She composes these awful letters to everybody, and she shouts out the window, and she's really, really not a very nice person. She teaches classical music or a piano, and her last pupil went because she had an argument with his dad, and so he didn't come back. So she needs the money. She's quite desperate for money because the house is very shabby, and that's where Francesca and Emily fit in, because they go to live with her, because obviously Frank can't live at home at this moment in time because it's in a bit of turmoil, and Emily, nobody else wants to live with them anyway, so she goes there. So it's 3 stories, but they're really interesting. And Violet in particular, her story, rather than being present day, comes to you in flashbacks. So it looks at her when in the 60s, when she was a young girl, and her life and things that happened to her as she grew older. And you start to understand why she's got a chip on her shoulder. I'm not going to say what it is because obviously it will spoil the plot, but it's really quite sad. And you start the book by disliking her, but by the end of it, you're feeling really quite sorry for her. And her friendship with Francesca and Emily comes to a head, and they all come together and support each other, and it's really, really good book. I enjoyed it. It's quite a light read. I don't want to say it's light because it looks at some really serious subjects, and a lot of prejudices, and it looks at things that we sort of brush under the carpet, try not to think about. So it does bring them to the fore, but it doesn't. It makes it in a light-hearted way, so you don't feel like you're being pressurized into anything. So if you like Marion Keyes, if you like Joanna Trollope, if you used to like reading Maeve Binchy and reading about the characters and the feelings and the things they're going through, then this is definitely a good book to read. And I heard Claudia Carroll speak at an author's event a couple of years ago when she was writing her first book, which is the Secrets of Primrose Square. She said that it was a quote by Eleanor Roosevelt that gave her the inspiration for the book. And it said, "A woman is a little bit like a tea bag. You don't know how strong she is until she's dipped in hot water." And all the women in this book have been dipped in hot water at some point in their lives. So it's a really, really good read, and I quite enjoyed it. And as you said, it is available on audiobook as well. I can't remember the name of the narrator, but she's an Irish woman, and she's got a fabulous accent, and it really, really brings it to life. So yeah, give it a go.
Oh, that sounds so exciting, Carol. I can't wait to have a go at that one. I feel left out now because I haven't read it. Oh, I should have read it. But I will. I've got a treat in store. So Fiona, I know that you've read this one as well. How did this book make you both feel? How did it make you feel, Fiona?
I really enjoyed it. I wasn't the usual sort of book that I would read. I am aware of who Claudia Carroll is, and I wouldn't normally read it, and I'm really glad I did, and I might have to read that first one now as well.
Yeah, it's very good. In fact, some people do say it's better than Primrose, the women, but it's about women again. So, and the characters do pop up in this one, but not in any significant way to the plot. But if you've read the first book, you can think, oh yes, I know that person.
Yeah.
But it is worth a read.
I like the way that their stories kind of interlinked, and I love the flashback kind of way that you slowly unpeel who Violet is because of her history. I thought that was really well done. I thought the characterizations of the people, even some of the minor characters, were really well done. And I enjoyed it, and it made me laugh, and it made me cry, and it did all the things that it should do, really.
Just listening to this, it sounds like a big theme in this novel is kind of the unveiling of identity. It's like the peeling back of who people really are underneath the fronts that they put on to society. I wanted to ask, how well do you both think that Francesca's transition is handled in the book?
I felt it was handled quite well. Obviously, I don't know a lot about it, so I was just reading it as it was. And I suppose at the end of the day, it is a novel, so it like I said, it doesn't go too deeply into things. But I think it made you realise, or made you know, that Frank was Francesca. And as I said earlier, the Francesca character was definitely the stronger character. So she came to a fore, and whenever anything needed doing, it was always Francesca that did it and not Frank. Although Frank was very good with the washing up and the cooking and stuff, it was the Francesca that was the real person, if that makes sense. So I thought that was really good, and I felt the way it was with the family, the children, because as I said, you've got a dad, but your dad can't be a woman, but it is a woman. Does that make sense? So there's the children, both had quite difficult times with it, especially the older, the teenage boy, because with it being a close-knit community as well, there was a lot of gossip. So the postman, dropped something through the door and made a snide comment, and the people at work who Frank worked with one of them in particular was really horrible to him. So, but you knew how Frank or Francesca was feeling because it was described, and it made you think, well, if I ever met anybody that I knew was, transiting or anything, it would make me feel more sympathetic to it, or you know what I mean. So I thought it was very good, personally, and I liked the way Emily, she took Francesca as she was, because obviously she met Francesca as Frank, and then she just happens to come across her when she's dressed as Francesca and is Francesca. It's a bit difficult to explain, but Emily
There's
just
the limits of language, isn't it?
Emily just took her for what she was, and she accepted Francesca as Francesca. There was no nastiness there, and they became quite good friends and supported each other. And Emily preferred Frank as Francesca in the end. So I felt it was good. It was interesting because I looked at it probably more from the relationship side of it rather than the treatment, although that's sympathetically handled in some ways, because he's got a counsellor and he's got somebody who can go and talk to. But again, you know how he's feeling when he goes, or she goes, to the meetings and she speaks to the counsellor. You get a sense of how she's feeling. So yeah, I thought it was quite good.
What do you think, Fiona?
I agree. I think it's very sensitively handled. I think it's respectfully handled, and I think you're absolutely right, Carol. The family thing and how it takes a while but actually, his daughter, how lovely that is, and how open-minded children are.
Yes.
If they're not bothered about all the things that adults.
Yeah.
But I found some of the language when he was with his counsellor seemed to be very old language, but I don't know what counselling for trans people's like in Ireland. It might be a bit different from here. And I was a bit horrified by the fact that actually Emily was the only person in his whole life who wasn't horrible to him to begin with.
Yeah.
His daughter, maybe. And it just seemed like Dublin's a capital city in the Western world, and it just seemed a bit unlikely that there wouldn't be anyone at work. Even the HR person was just ticking boxes.
Yes.
It seemed a little bit like that wouldn't really. I really hope that would never happen to in 21st century Europe. But so that seemed a bit. But I guess there was a point. There's a point to that in the story that she that she was accepted in the end by everybody. Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
And so I thought it was good to see a story like that in mainstream literature, which hopefully we'll see more and more. And yeah, it was a nice story to read.
Thank you very much. It's so interesting. It sounds like there's a lot of separate storylines, but it does sound like they kind of support each other and come together. Would you say that's the case, Carol?
I would say so, yes, because the novel, the actual novel isn't a story. It doesn't have a start and finish as such, but the three characters sort of have a start and finish, because I think the finish is the way they come together in the end. Because Violet and Emily are absolute complete opposites. They call each other funny names. I mean, Emily refers to Violet as hatchet face Violet. She thinks I've got to sort out hatchet face Violet, and Violet calls her Madame Emily Dunn because she doesn't do what she wants, and she smokes out the bedroom window. And they're really so opposite, but they do come together and become quite good friends. And then same with Francesca. Obviously Violet can't understand why Frank should want to wear ladies' clothes. She can't quite get her head around it. But even that, in the end, she loves his cooking, and he takes her under his wing. When he comes in from work, he cooks the dinner and all those sorts of things, and looks after her. That she actually accepts him, and when he's Francesca, it doesn't matter. It's yeah, they do come together very well, I think. Yeah.
Do you think is there another book in this series, or do you think this will be the last one?
I've no idea. I would like to think she would write another one, but I mean, she's got 6 characters already, because there's 3 in the first one and 3 in the second, and then there's a few others. But it would be nice if she did. I think they're very good books.
Watch his face for that
one.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you both very much. If you could just hold your books up again, and I'll just remind everybody what they are. So we've been reviewing today Ruby Fruit Jungle, and we've also been reviewing The Women of Primrose Square. And it's just so you know, just do go on to BorrowBox. You can download the app on your mobile phone, on your computer, or on your tablet, and you just need your library card and your PIN number. And The Women of Primrose Square is available as an audiobook or an ebook with no cues. And Ruby Fruit Jungle is also available to borrow on BorrowBox as an ebook as well. So yeah, thank you so much for joining me today, Fiona and Carol. It's been such an exciting journey to talk about those books. It's been great. So hopefully, Carol, you'll be back with me next month to talk about some more books. And Fiona, thanks so much. It's been such a pleasure to have you with us. It's been great. Thank you.
That's been really good. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Okay, bye for now.
Bye.